This race we finished first place and we were ahead of others by 40 seconds, which is quite a lot. We achieved a superb result and gained a lot of points in the standings. After getting first place, we gained 10 more points, and because all of the top contenders which are going to promote are deliberately saving money, so they didn't gain any more points. And we virtually have the promotion secured now, and we're going to promote to pro as long as we don't do anything silly and we be conservative and gain some points again for this race. We also got the fastest lap, which gets us some money for this race. Our fastest lap was about 1.1 seconds slower than the fastest in the same class. And we ranked top 140 out of everyone. The last few races where we did 5th to 3rd place or so, we ranked top 200 or top 250. You can see our driver keep gaining more motivation points, and if the overall exceeds 135, we won't be able to keep him for the promotion to pro. You can see our driver still made 2 mistakes in the race, which is typical of what he does. While we qualified very well for this race, we only ranked top 8, and previously with our good qualifying we are 10 to 12th place, so we didn't necessarily rank further in the qualifying. You can see at the start of the race, the few top contenders who qualified top had high wear on car parts and it broke, so they won't win the race. You can see at this point in the race, we are same as top 3 for the fastest lap. You can see that we went up to first place after 30 laps or so, but then we got overtaken a bit and we pitted first before our rival. And surprisingly, after the pit stop we are about 20 seconds or so ahead of them. Potentially they lost a bit of time with the worn tires, and they had put a very high fuel load for the second stint. And we can see the gap is being higher and higher towards the end of the race, which indicates potentially they don't have any wear compensation and they're using the stock settings you find during the car setup. And we know that for the rain races you need a bit more wear compensation to be able to get a flat curve. We know when we promote and we have more than $50 million, then we'll get taxed a lot. So we have a lot of money to play around. So we are going to train our driver with that money and reduce the weight again, which will secure us winning points and guarantee the promotion. And with the remainder of the money, we're going to look at the car update first before we upgrade our facilities to prepare for next season. If we look at the sponsor negotiation, unfortunately the one we're trying to get left us during the negotiation, so I have to look for another one. I think the problem is potentially there are multiple people negotiating. So even having an easy to negotiate manager like this one with the max bars doesn't mean we'll necessarily be able to secure it. As long as there's less competition, that potentially matters more. We want to negotiate with this War Red because it has even better stats than the other one. We're going to negotiate one at a time with the sponsors. You can see our sponsorship is running out for two of which we got. So we definitely want to upgrade our facilities for sponsor negotiation. If we look at the track, there's not much acceleration points but some power points. We can definitely downgrade the gearbox to save some money, but we're going to have to upgrade some of the other parts. You can see the gearbox is $9 million or so for the upgrade, and it will carry on to the next season, but we're going to pay that money and we're not going to get the wear reset. If we upgrade the gearbox now, we're going to use only about 25% of the wear for one race only, and next season the wear resets to 0. But we're going to earn a bit more money if we upgrade the gearbox. I still think it's potentially better to downgrade, or can be a lot of money down the drain. And we're going to upgrade the brakes. You can see with the level 4 gearbox, the wear will be a bit high. And we need to reduce our driver risk to 50 or so, which is 2 points lower, to make sure we have enough wear to make it to the end, or we'll lose a lot of time. We can see the clear track per risk is about 0.72 to 0.66, so we need to reduce our risk by that amount. If we do the calculation, then we'll need to use a clear risk of 32 or so to be able to lower the wear by 1 or 2 points. And since we have some money to throw around, we're going to upgrade the electronics, and we're also going to upgrade our chassis for this race and next season. These parts last for many races, and it's a bit more cost effective comparing to upgrading the gearbox because it wears out a lot. You can see we lost about 3 points or so in the acceleration, and gained that power and handling back from the chassis and electronics upgrade to make sure we gain some points in this race and secure that promotion. If we look at the facilities, we don't necessarily think we want to upgrade the pit stop training because we're already quite well in the pit times, but we want to upgrade the commercial a bit, maybe to 35, and we're going to upgrade all of the other testing facilities by 2 levels or so. And we're spending a modest $3 million or so to upgrade the facilities, and that increased the facility maintenance by $45,000 or so. We don't want too much levels or pay too much money in maintenance. You can see our car wear is all in check. And we copied the car wear into the calculator tool. We look at this race we're going to do. It is easy to overtake, and the past results show that 1 or 2 pit stops work well. When we look at our calculator tool, it shows that we should do a 2 pit stop, and it has the 1.4 coefficient, which is same as 2 pit stops. We can see that it's highly likely to rain for the first stint and maybe for half of the race. While we know that with softer tires and lower fuel load, it works with changing conditions better. We'll still lose a bit of time if we can't cover the large rain distance and make an extra pit stop. So the safer option could potentially be doing the 2 pit stops and putting enough fuel to suit this strategy. We can see the race lap times would be about 1:17 per lap, and we can see the total laps is 79, and when we enter the lap times, it will take about 80 minutes for this race. And we can see 30 minutes would be equivalent to 23 laps. If we check the wet lap times, it would be about 1:28 or so. And we know that we will potentially need to cover 60 minutes of wet laps for the second stint. From some of the past races, it can rain for up to 20 or 30 minutes. Even when it shows the probability is 0 or 5% after it rains for the previous sector. So we can assume the max rain laps will be about 55 or so. And we know that we definitely need to have about 23 laps or so worth of dry tire life. And the minimum we can have is about 16 laps or so. Otherwise, we would not be able to cover this first stint before the weather changes. If we look at the soft tires, it's about 20 laps or so. So not quite 30 minutes, but we will gain a lot of time for the first sector from starting with the low fuel and the few laps on the soft tires. And then what happens if the weather changes and all of that wouldn't really matter. We know it's easy to overtake and it suits 2 pit stops in the dry, so with the 3 pit stops you won't necessarily lose much time. We can see with the soft tires and the 5% offset to suit the actual race risk, we can still do 24 or more laps before we don't have any tires left. And we know that doing 2 pit stops is about 27 laps for each stint. And if we choose the medium tires, it's more similar to doing 1.5 pit stops, which is too much. We can start the race off with 20 laps of fuel, and it will be equivalent to 25 minutes. And we know the first stint is 30 minutes, and it will definitely rain within typically 7 to 10 minutes, so 25 minutes is redundant enough. And for the second rain stint, you can see the rain to be about 25 plus 30 minutes plus another 20. So it's likely that there can be 5 minutes of dry and the second stint entirely wet, and it takes 20 minutes to dry up. And we enter that number, we'll need to do 51 wet laps, and then enter the fuel required. And we know this track is optimum with 2 pit stops, and when it rains typically we subtract 1 pit stop away. So we can do 2 pit stops for the rain, and it's just equivalent to 27 laps or so. And if we do 2 of 27 laps, is about 54 laps, and it will suit the 75 minutes we need to cover. If we look at doing one pit stop for this race, which is the optimum strategy, it will be about 40 laps or so. And then we won't be able to have enough fuel to cover the 51 laps required. But what we can do is do 20 laps first, which is equivalent to 3 pit stop. And the optimum is 1 pit stop, so it's only 2 pit stop difference. And then the second stint we do 32 laps, which is in between 1 and 2 pit stops, so it won't lose much time. And then for the final stint, we want to have a lot of fuel to cover potentially many dry laps, and we want to maximize the tire wear, and we can give it 25 laps and we'll have 6% tire left. And then we entered the fuel required next to it so it don't get mixed up between dry and wet laps of fuel. We can also see coincidentally the max dry laps would equal to the high fuel load we have for the cover the long wet stints and have the same amount of fuel. So be robust in covering the long stints during the weather changes. We're going to find the setup for the race. We are going to find the wing split. You can see lap 6 was the center for the wing split, and we can add 20 points or so to make it a bit closer to lap 8. We're going to do qualifying. It's the first time we got first place in qualifying. We entered the setup for Q2, and we added 1 extra lap for the redundancy for the first half of the race, where it's the dry start and it turns wet. We want to get that extra 20 minutes, and we know the average for it to turn wet is about 7 to 12 minutes, and 20 minutes extra compared to the average is the amount of redundancy we have to be conservative and make sure we don't do extra pit stops. And we entered the fuel. You can see that we have quite a lead in qualifying, and we were only 0.1 off from our rival in Q2. Our rival used a very low fuel load, and he may not be able to cover the dry laps before it turns wet. You can see he only had 0.5 seconds worth of fuel difference, and we had 1 second slower to have enough fuel for the first stint. And we had a shocking qualifying time, and we're top 10% out of all qualified managers in the same class, and 2.3 seconds or so slower than the fastest rivals. I think because the car updates with the correct characteristics and having a good driver helped us do better in qualifying, because this track is a bit less car dependent for the lap times, a bit more driver dependency, and we give our car a bit more power and handling to suit the track. So it adds up a lot. Previously we were top 20% or so, but this time we qualified top 10%. You can see the total wet time will be about 88 minutes, and the least amount of dry laps in the start before it turns wet will be about 7 minutes. And previously we tried to add the few numbers up and we got 75 minutes or so. If we do it analytically and give 20 minutes for this T3 to dry up, so potentially we want to do 55 wet laps instead of having 51. If we look at the least possible dry laps right after it turned into rain, it will be about 27 laps or so. So if we give a bit more fuel for the first stint, we would potentially lose a lot of time, because we will not have enough fuel to cover the weather changes and the distance, and we might pit with 1 or 2 laps before the weather change. And if we pit with 20 laps, we'll be able to cover at least 5 or 10 laps or so and cover the remainder required distance with the higher fuel. It wouldn't necessarily be able to reduce the amount of fuel for this, increase the amount of fuel for this first stint to cover the 80 minutes we want to do, going from 55 to 51 laps. So we're going to give our driver 73 laps of fuel for this second stint to cover the 35 laps and make sure we are able to go to the end in the changing condition. And it's about 5 extra liters of fuel. We wouldn't lose much time anyways. We entered the lower risk required to reduce the car wear, which is 32, and we entered the boost laps required. We entered the setup for the race, and we look at the amount of minimum wet laps. It's about 38 minutes or so. The track is about 50-50 wet and dry potentially, but it's better to pick either setup for entirely dry or entirely wet, and we chose to do an entirely dry setup because the wet setup conversion is not the exact setup, it's only approximate. And we saw that we calculate for the first stint it will be about 23 minutes and then 50 minutes or so for the second stint of wet, which is a total of 38 minutes of wet time, so about 50-50. You can see there's 77 dry minutes and 88 wet minutes for this race.